Welcome to the Doctor Bros, where we have an honest discussion around vet life in and out of the clinic. My name is Chris, and I'm your doc of the day and your guide through this episode. I'm here with my closest friends from vet school.
Hey guys, I'm Adam. I'm a relief veterinarian in Louisville, Kentucky.
Hey, I'm Brandon. I'm a small animal internal medicine resident at Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa.
Hey y'all, this is Jeff. I am a residency trained in dermatology doctor, vet out in Louisville, Kentucky.
And this is Chris again, and I'm a GP in North Carolina. And we are joined by another one of our classmates, Shune. He is an internal med specialist from UGA. He's here to join us today. And we're going to learn more about Shune and kind of his story in vet medicine. But before we get to that, we're going to do an opening game. All right, Shune?
All right.
So, or more opening question. So, what sport would you compete in if you were in the Olympics? Anybody can go first.
Is this summer or winter or both?
Doesn't matter.
So this is Adam. I have one, and it's an easy call for me. It's obviously going to be curling.
Obviously?
Because, obviously. I mean, you've seen those guys. They look like just a bunch of dads who just like get together on the weekend and just like find a hobby. And so I'm just thinking like all the dads on the pod, like me and Chris and Shune, I think we're ready, guys.
Listen, I can sweep like no other, let me tell you.
This is Jeff, and I would say easy answer, swimming. I mean, longevity, you get more Olympics than more careers. You don't have to sacrifice your body. My joints are going to thank me when I get old. And I used to swim when I was younger. Easy answer, I will be swimming.
This is Brandon. I definitely do snowboarding, specifically like the slope style, like hitting the rails and the jumps. That would be pretty sick.
This is Shune, and I guess honestly it would be I can't really decide between tennis because that's sort of what I grew up doing, and then ultimate frisbee was sort of my career change in undergrad when I decided not to keep playing tennis for a while and I took a break. So although I think Chris would say that ultimate would be inadvisable considering our vet school days, right, bud?
Yeah, I did have a pretty significant injury playing ultimate. I would still pick it. I think curling though makes sense for where I'm at now in my life with Adam. I do agree with that. It looks like
let's go.
The curling team looks like a bunch of guys that just kind of ended up in the Olympics and are just like, how are we here?
Yes.
And they're just kind of going with it. So,
it's our best shot. It really is.
You're going to be canceled by the curlers. You don't even know.
Getting started here on our topic with Shune and his episode. So, Shune, how did you get interested into vet med? What's the story on you with that?
First of all, longtime listener to y'all, super fan, and so really an honor to be on this show. And I was low key real nervous, and so it seems like I think a lot of y'all were. And I think a lot of people that went into vet med kind of had their eyes set on it from a very young age. And it definitely seems like, I think to be fair, some people will sort of have like a midway sort of like, oh, do I want to do it? I think, Chris, you weren't sure about that, right? And then, but committed to it. I think for me, I didn't think I was going into vet med at all until, midway into college, actually. I came into college. I went to undergrad at Georgia Tech, and I majored in biomedical engineering. I went into engineering because both of my parents are doctors, and so I actually swore off the medical profession from just growing up in that for 18 years. And then I decided that I wanted to do engineering, and so I went to Georgia Tech. And then while I was in my between my sophomore and junior year of college, I went back home. My home at that time was Zambia in Africa, and I decided that in addition to sort of doing some part-time work at the USAID, or the United States Agency for International Development, I decided that I would just, volunteer. And because I didn't have much to do, I just volunteered at a small animal clinic to kind of pass the time. And so I was at this clinic for a couple months, or maybe it was, 1 or 2 months, just sort of passing the time. The clinic was owned by a Zambian veterinarian, and her name was Dr. Liza Opera Ocha. And there was also an American vet named Dr. Julie Hoag. And I think, basically it was sort of from like the second half of the day, from like noon till 5, was sort of the plan, Monday to Friday, just to pass the time. But I ended up just sort of getting caught up in doing all of the things day to day. And before I knew it, I just didn't realize how much I enjoyed it until, the end of the whole summer, when they said, "Hey, so are you thinking about being a veterinarian? Like, is that anywhere in your career path?" And I said, "No, not really." And they kind of looked at me and they went, "You really should think about it. Did you not see how you spent the whole summer here?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." So that was kind of where that initial interest came. And I think one of the things that I had to really realize pretty quickly was being a veterinarian means you probably need to get some good grades. And to give you an idea of where I was kind of sitting at, my first semester at Georgia Tech, my GPA was 1.93. So I didn't even hit 2. And so I kind of dug myself into a hole. And I can tell you that being a biomedical engineering major, there aren't a lot of GPA boosters. And so I apparently decided, and I think probably being young and reckless probably helped, but I thought, okay, so I guess, no big deal. I can dig myself out of this. And that really wasn't the case. So it took a while for me to get actually into vet school. It took a lot of soul searching and really thinking about it from, that initial point of like, yeah, this sounds like a great idea, to actually seriously committing to it. But I think that was sort of that initial spark that got me interested.
No, that's awesome. And especially, I didn't realize you worked at a clinic in Zambia.
Yeah, I graduated. So I did middle school and high school. So that was from 12 to 18. I lived in Zambia. My parents were still living there for a couple years while I was in college before they both moved back abroad. So there were a couple years where I actually did go back, and it was kind of nice, but it was kind of hard to actually. Some of my classmates, didn't return over the summer, so there was some quiet summers where there was nobody there, and it felt like I was the only one there. So yeah, I had to kind of pass the time somehow. So that's what I did.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you said getting into vet school, you had to do some soul searching and everything. How long did it take you to get into vet school?
Yeah, so it took me 3 tries, so 3 years. So I first graduating, it took me 5 instead of 4 years to graduate from Georgia Tech, which is where I went to undergrad. Go Jackets! And it was, I would say, I think that, it took a little bit longer trying to get my GPA up, but also some of the requirements, right, for vet school is a little bit different between the engineering major and then vet school. So that took a little bit of time too. So yeah, so it was, I think, trying to, between the time when I graduated in 2011 and then I joined y'all in 2013, that time I was actually working at a small animal clinic in Atlanta called the Ark Animal Hospital. And that vet clinic was owned by a Tuskegee grad. Her name was Rhonda Harris. And so she had taken me under her wing. And I remember that she was the only clinic that sort of took me in, actually, because at that time I didn't have a car. I didn't know how to drive. And so I biked to all of the neighborhood clinics at the time and dropped off a letter being like, "Hi, I'd like to volunteer at your clinic." And she was the one that took me in, and she had suggested Tuskegee because that's where she went. But I didn't really think on it, and I didn't really know about Tuskegee. And I think I was really convinced from all of the alumni that would drop by and help her out and the connections from that. And so I think seeing sort of how close knit the Tuskegee community was really actually sold me and convinced me to apply on that third go.
And then we know the story from there is you went to Tuskegee. We all did our 4 years there. What'd you do after that?
Yeah, so after I graduated, I did my field service internship at the University of Georgia. And then after that, I went to Auburn University, where I did my large animal internal medicine residency, which had a focus in equine medicine. I finished that in 3 years, as it's supposed to be. And that program has a master's. So I got a master's of science at that time too. And then after that, I moved back to Athens, and I've been doing a PhD with my mentor, Dr. Kelsey Hart. And so, yeah, that's where I've been.
That's awesome. And I could not think of doing a residency and then doing a PhD on top of that. What is your PhD in focus in?
Yeah, so Dr. Hart's research is on what's called the immunoendocrine axis in horses, and so her specific interest or her focus has been on looking at the links between how the immune system and the endocrine system are related, and so some of the diseases in horses that she is really a big name in is PPID, or pituitary pars intermedia dysfunction. It used to be called equine Cushing's disease, but people are trying to sort of go away from that because the process that happens is a little bit different from what you think of in Cushing's disease that you see in small animal. But the other part of it is sepsis. So, and specifically where my interest is in sort of that in a condition called SIRS. And so that stands for systemic inflammatory response syndrome. And so that's sort of that massive and like inflammation that's happening to the body when you think of a septic person. And so her research then was a lot in, how cortisol, which is that, the steroid hormone, how that plays an important role in regulating the immune system and how important that is. And so what I'm doing through her research is sort of looking at that SIRS part, and looking specifically now at the hormone insulin. And so one of the things is that the body doesn't respond to insulin very well in these conditions. And so we're trying to sort of tease out the links with how insulin plays a role in the immune system.
Definitely. I don't know how focusing on all of that just seems like a whole lot to do with everything. So what are you doing next now after you finish your PhD? What's the plan for you?
Yeah, so I think at this point, I kind of get teased a lot for being a career student. And so I think if I could, I would love to collect more specialties. I think, it's kind of like Pokemon. You got to collect them all, right? But I'm pretty sure my wife would. So I think my wife would murder me at this point if I did not get a grown-up job. So I think I'm going to have to retire as a student. My hope is to go into academia, which might be a surprise to you, I think. And I think ideally, yeah, right. I think,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Big surprise, I know. So I think my ultimate hope is to be in academia. I really like being able to teach. I think I really enjoyed just having that, being able to mentor veterinary students or, and honestly, just anybody just sort of pursuing this field. So I think that has a big part to play in it. I think that I really miss the clinical aspect of it, and I am really finding myself enjoying the research aspect. And so I think that's sort of where I'm hoping to be now, also recognizing, I think one of the other things that I need a soul search for the next couple of years about is how is that going to be compatible with my family life? We just recently welcomed twins. Well, I guess it's been a year now, but I've got a eldest who's about to turn 4 tomorrow, and the twins are about to turn 1. And so I think, the current status with vet med, I think we all know it's a little bit hard. And so, to I think do the whole work-life balance thing, right? And so I think it would be trying to figure out what would be most compatible with that. And if industry is the way to go instead, then, so be it. But I think that's kind of the general path that you've got for somebody with a PhD training is academia or industry. And, obviously you can go to private practice too, but I think that's probably a side that I'm not really looking too far into as much.
Okay, awesome. No, that's great. I mean, we all kind of know that you're interested in academia, so it wasn't anything of a shocker to us that you want to stay in school more or find a way to stay in school. So now what we're kind of going to do now, JT, is going to kind of open it up. Everyone just kind of ask some round table type questions and just kind of spitfire them at you and just answer them as best you can.
Oof. Oh man. Oh, this hot seat. I don't know if I could take this.
The hot seat. It's so good. Don't worry, Shune. This is Jeff. So,
Wait. Sorry. Who? Who? Who this?
this is Jeff.
Jeff.
You can also
Jeff?
call me JT, Shune.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Yes, refresher for everyone. I did go by JT during vet school, so most of my friends call me JT, even though professionally Jeff is more common. But anyway, clearly you collect degrees like Infinity Stones. So what motivated you to... Yeah, I always think it's interesting in general, people's motivations. Like, what made you get interested in doing a residency, and then what motivated you to do a PhD after that? Because you could do research in general, but knowing that you liked it, like, what got you there?
Yeah. So when I first got into vet med, right, I don't think I necessarily thought that being, specializing. I mean, I think I was interested in it, but I don't think I was completely sure if that's the direction I wanted to go. I think part of the motivation for going into residency for me was, I think the interest had always been there in internal medicine. I think it was, I think just the way that the concepts were, and the way things sort of were organized and all of that made sense to me, and how that explains how the body works. And so I think that was always there. I think to be a specialist instead of going into general practice, I think one of the things that I had thought about was, what is the best way for me to help people? Really, that was one of the things that I thought about a lot. And I think I realized that I think one of the things that I saw from the other specialists is that there's a relationship that, especially, and I think this happens specifically with in large animal medicine, is the relationship that you have with the primary veterinarian, the general practitioner, and helping them and being an extension of their practice by referring cases to us and helping them in ways that they may not be able to offer. That was something that to me really made sense to me. I think it was a way that I kind of felt like the relation, and I think part of it is actually from being at Tuskegee and being in our class and sort of the relationships that we had there, and wanting to sort of be with the folks that I've kind of walked alongside. And I think that sort of extends out to everybody that graduates from vet school, right? And sort of being on that path. I think for me, it made sense to say, like, I think this is something that I can do, and this is a way that I can help you with, and I can want to develop those relationships with other veterinarians to help their practice be better, was something that was really appealing to me. I think that also made me think about, going to academia, wanting to mentor like future veterinarians, and wanting to help them in that path. Be specializing and, is a big way of getting into those spaces, right? And I think that the other part of it is, if you want to survive as an academic, then you have to be able to be a good researcher as well. And so I think that for me, research was the part that I wasn't really sure about. But if I'm going to be convinced about, staying in this, in a place and being able to help and grow future veterinarians to be at a better place, then I need to be good as a good researcher. And so I think that really kind of made me think, okay, yes, I've got a master's, and, the residency program does have some training as in terms of how to be a good researcher, but I think there's more to it. And so part of it was taking that extra time to go into a PhD and not doing a residency and a PhD at the same time, which some crazy people do.
That would be insane.
So I'm not the craziest person. I thought that I could do it, and then I realized during my residency that was not going to happen for me. I am not special, and I am a dum-dum. And so because of that, I thought, okay, I'm going to take...
we think you're special. You stop that right now. Stop it.
Listen, I think it's important to, and so I think, and honestly, I've always had Dr. Hart as sort of that mentor that I always wanted to be trained under. Even during my when I was looking at residencies, one of the places I really wanted to be at was UGA, because I wanted to train under her, and because she had been a big impact into why I chose horses to begin with and large animals to begin with. And so I think, the PhD was really going to be that real prime opportunity to finally get to train under her and like train, specifically be mentored by her. And so that was a really, really big motivator.
Did you, I know like you've talked a lot about like going in academia after this and your training and PhD. Like, what about like outside of that, like family wise, do you have any like big aspirations, more kids down the road?
No more kids. Three is good. I think I mean, listen, I love my twins. It was a great BOGO deal, so to speak, but I think we're good now. I now can play doubles with my daughter and the boys when they get older. And I'm really looking forward to that. I don't know if this is the question that you're asking, but I don't want them to go into vet med per se. If they want to, then so be it. But the things that I want them to be good at are being good people and being good at math.
It's interesting you say that, because if I end up having kids down the road, I don't know that I'd push them into vet med either, to be honest with you. And I'm not like, you and I are not alone. I know a lot of vets, some that are in specialty, and they feel the same way.
I think, yeah. I mean, honestly, my hope is, I guess, like if I'm really like trying to push ideals on them, which I really hope that I don't go into that stereotype. I think, I would nudge them towards engineering. It's one of those things that I actually didn't enjoy it, even though like the sort of like the fun culture is like being miserable, and a lot of techies will talk about, getting out and talking about Stockholm syndrome of like you're miserable when you're in it, but then you miss it. I think, I did have a good, good time as an engineer. And I think if you're really trying to look for a good, stable job, I think it's going to be programming or engineering and consulting. And if they go into consulting and they get lots of mileages, then they can bring that back to their the parents, and we can do a lot of traveling. So, I think engineering and consulting is the way to go. But,
Yeah, I agree with you there.
That's me pushing there. Yeah. Yeah. Frequent flyers. That's where it's going to
go. This is Adam. I got a question for you. So I know we've touched on a lot that you're kind of collecting all the degrees you can. Seems like you're having your own personal battle between number of degrees versus number of children. So
I wonder if that's something I can convince my wife. It's like, look, if we keep having children, like, does that mean I can have more degrees? Pretty sure the answer is no, but I guess I could try asking that.
Good luck.
So just noticing that, and again, your oldest being, I think you said 4, and just kind of doing the math, I would assume you had your oldest around the time you were doing your residency. And I know that can be a lot with, having a family, having a wife, having the kids, doing a residency that requires a lot of your time. So what's it been like trying to manage that family dynamic with all these degrees that you're collecting as well?
Yeah. So, we had our eldest so that was beginning of my second year of my residency. And I think I guess we'll see where this goes. So I think the logic behind, I think, the craziness of that was that there was timings that were not right for us. And I think, when it came to residency, I think our logic was, well, I think, we've been waiting for some time. And I think that this, at the very least, we're going to be here for a while. I mean, more than a year. So we had, if it was like from internship to internship, I think that would have made it really hard for our family. But I think when you're in a residency, then you're at least there for 3 years ish. And so I think, that sort of helped in terms of stability. Now, there's a lot of non-stable things about a residency, like hours on call. And especially as a large animal internal med resident, full season, which happens really in, like in the springtime, is this really concentrated period of hell, as you've got a lot of foals that are just around the clock needing help, which is great when, and all the things that you learn. And I think there's a lot of interesting cases that come out of it, but the hours get real bad. And so that during that time, the question of how did I juggle kids and that, the answer to that is that having a spouse that is a superhero who understands and literally did 99% of being a parent was really the key. And so to that, I owe her a lot. And I also owe her not to be collecting too many more degrees so that I can start to be a productive bread maker and breadwinner. So yeah. But I mean, really, it was a time when, especially during like the really busy seasons, I was really not at home, or when I was at home, she was asleep, she was asleep. And, my wife Hibisco was, literally waking up, taking her to daycare, picking them up, feeding them, feeding her, feeding, both of them. Right. And I think that was really, really tough. COVID made it a little bit of an interesting time. I think I think that was really kind of nuts, right, when all that was happening. And one of the weird blessings about that was that, the way that we decided to handle that as a clinic, as a hospital, was, we would have 1 week on and then 2 weeks off. And so that actually gave her, a little bit of a reprieve in that sense, that I could sort of share that burden. So a lot of my off clinic times was being able to help. But when things got real busy, she really had to take the brunt of it. And I'm very grateful that I had a very supportive partner in all of this.
No, that's super true. Shune, this is Chris. So yeah, definitely, our spouses definitely help us out a lot with all the kid bearing and making our lives easier as we can go to work and everything. And especially with you trying to get as many degrees as you can. And hopefully you might get some more here soon. We don't know. I don't think this is your last degree. I think you'll probably end up getting another one.
Listen, I mean, I do have some wish lists of other specialties that I would like to have.
Enough, Shune.
What are these?
Well, so one, I really would like to have a. Oh boy, am I going to dig myself into a hole with this when my wife listens to this?
You got to just go for it now.
Okay. So to be fair, pharmacology is a topic that I really like. So I really like. So veterinary pharmacology. So that's on sort of understanding drugs. That has been a huge interest. And that was one of the things that I really got interested in over the course of my time in vet school. And then with some of the folks that I met at Georgia, and my research, my residency research was on that. And that was something that I'm also taking into my projects here. So I think being a veterinary pharmacologist is something that might possibly happen if I can be creative about it, and maybe if I somehow slide it underneath somehow so that my wife doesn't notice, right? ClinPath, clinical pathology, also is interesting to me. One of the things that I really enjoyed during my Auburn residency was having a really great relationship with the pathologists, both the clinical and the anatomic pathologists. And I learned a lot from them. And I think that ClinPath is something that I've always enjoyed. Dr. Elizabeth Graham at Tuskegee was very wonderful for that. Her final exam was brutal. I still have nightmares about that. That was 3 hours of hell, if I remember right. But I think I really enjoy ClinPath, and I think that is something that, that might make sense in the future if I can somehow be creative about it. I really like cardiology too, but I don't think I could do like a veterinary, like an internal med branch cardiology thing. I hope that somehow I can squeeze that in. So I think those are my top 3 wish lists for a bucket list of specialties that I think I'd be interested in. But it's just a dream. It's only just a dream.
I don't even know how you do pharmacology. Like, is there a residency program somewhere?
Yeah, so it's one of those things that, like, I think that a lot of places have it as sort of like a non-traditional route. And so, you obviously have to be, you have to have a pharmacologist that's willing to sort of, have you under their wing and sort of do the thing basically. But I haven't seen a lot of pharmacology residencies, like formal residency programs. But I mean, there is a college of veterinary pharmacology, and they seem to somehow keep getting some additions to it. So I guess there's a way in there, but I think a lot of it seems to be sort of non-traditional and sort of in the kind of, what do you call it? Like it's like, I don't think it's quite as public as the others, right? And I don't think a lot of people really seek that out as a potential career thing until later on.
And Shune, you kind of reminded me for Dr. Graham's test. I know that was 3 hours long, and I'm pretty sure that took you longer to do that test than it took you to do the NAVLE. All right, so to kind of wrap things up here, Shune kind of mentioned this, but what's some advice you give someone to becoming or aspiring to become a vet or a fourth-year vet student? This is open to everybody.
This is Adam. The advice I would give, especially for a fourth-year vet coming out, or really even somebody going into vet school, is find a mentor. Find somebody that is willing to take you on, help you learn the ropes, help you just learn all that you can about the field. Because in my experience, you're going to learn a lot more from getting out there and doing things than you are from a textbook, especially when it comes to the technique and the art of practice. So finding somebody that can really guide you through that and is willing to work with you with that and just be there for you when you have questions and need some help. I think that's the biggest thing I would urge people to do.
Yeah, this is Brandon. Just to jump on that as well, just like getting experience in general, like finding a mentor is a big deal because that makes your life even easier and streamlines the process. But if you're aspiring to be a veterinarian, getting as much experience as possible is key, whether that's just getting into a small animal practice, whether you can get in and actually work versus just shadowing versus volunteering at places that are kind of non-traditional. Like Chris and I both did some time at the Auburn Raptor Center where they rehabilitate some of the wild raptors. Just any kind of experience you can get in the veterinary field, I think will go a long way if you're trying to get into vet school.
So this is Jeff, and my best advice for fourth-year students in veterinary school on your way out is totally agree with what the other guys are saying. Make sure that the job that you are going into is something that really supports learning and continuing education. So they should have some sort of money set aside so that you can go to conferences, even if it doesn't cover everything, but they should be really in support of you going and getting more education and more knowledge. That should be wrapped into your contract every single year.
So Shune here, man, y'all gave some real good advice. I'm trying to think about and some practical ones too. I think for both the aspiring like pre-vet students and for the fourth year vet about to go into the profession, I think like y'all said, having a mentor is important. But the type of mentor that I would hope that you would, then what it means to have a mentor is to identify somebody that they are the prototype of who you want to be. And I think that's a really good way to sort of think about how to pick one, somebody that you can have a relationship with. And I would say like one of the things for me that I think that really resonated as to the type of mentors that I have, really been thankful for are the ones that, like they're all going to, your mentor is definitely going to be somebody that is excelling at the field in the way that you define success, right? And I think one of the ways that I think is important, especially nowadays, is one that knows how to be kind and compassionate, knowing how well they deal with the sort of the conflicts that happen in the profession, all of the challenges that happen in the profession, how they deal with it, and seeing and learning how they deal it well. And and that includes like those that are willing to be vulnerable with you when some of those type moments happen. And I think those are the moments that I think I realized that they were the mentors that I wanted. And I think and especially I think for the the fourth year vet, I would hope that you would have somebody that you can touch base with on a regular basis, and make sure that before you graduate, you should always have some connections where you don't ever feel like you're alone in this field, that you can always call to, and you can regularly call on a day-to-day basis, whether to talk about cases or whether to talk about challenges. Because I remember feeling very much alone when I went out into the profession. I think after the sort of the honeymoon period of being like, oh my gosh, I'm a doctor, kind of, came out. I think it was really important to have somebody that, like in that, that supporting circle and that supporting web. And so make sure that you have those people that you can fall back on and call, because you don't realize how alone you are until that happens. And then I think when you know who to go to, the metaphorical ghostbusters, if you will, that's really going to help you get rid of some of those ghosts that haunt you.
That's really great advice, Shune.
Yeah, no, that's awesome advice. Well, that kind of wraps up this episode here.
Wait. Can I do something real quick?
Yeah.
I do have a question for y'all before we finish this out. So, I think we all have a lot of veterinary knowledge, but I think some of that life advice and those life quizzes are really important. And so I've got two questions for you that I want to close this on, if that's okay. One is, do you know what has more letters than the alphabet?
No.
What, Shune?
What?
It's the post office, y'all. And I've got a specific question for those aspiring poultry vets that are out there. And so, do you know why you shouldn't tell jokes to eggs?
Why, Shune?
Why?
It's because they crack each other up. You want to save those eggs. Save those eggs, y'all.
I'm quitting the podcast.
Sorry, I just had to co-op the episode for that one brief moment, just for old time's sake.
Shune, that might be a new tradition to end off every episode.
It's not going to be a new tradition.
Yes.
Listen, if I can leave a mark on this podcast and that's what it is, I can retire. You don't have to have me as a guest, Joe. Or, you know what? If that'll help, me being a recurring person, so be it. I got you.
All right, Shune. Well, thank you so much for being on today's episode. Is there anywhere where they can reach you at?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So you can find me on Instagram. That it's kimura.vet, KIMURA.BET.
All right, everyone. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Dr. Bros. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere where you listen to podcasts. It would also help us out if you could share this episode with others who may be interested in today's topic. Tell us what you want to hear. You can just also shoot us a comment or email us at thedoctorbros@gmail.com or DM us at thedoctorbros on Instagram. You can also reach us on Instagram. You can reach me at dr.chris.hernandez.
And this is Adam. You can reach me on Instagram at Dr. Adam DVM. That's DRADAMDVM.
And this is Brandon. You can reach me at Dr. Mason IM. That's DOGTOR Mason IM.
And this is Jeff. You can reach me on Instagram and TikTok at DurhamDrJeff, DermDogtorJeff.